the Russian scientist who tried to resurrect dead dogs. Imagine a dimly lit laboratory in the Soviet Union during the height of the Cold War. Metal tables gleam under fluorescent light. Strange machines hum with electricity, and on one of those tables lies a dog, lifeless, still, its chest unmoving. Suddenly a switch is flipped, pumps begin to hiss, tubes pulse with artificial rhythm, and against every instinct of nature the dog's chest rises, its head twitches, its tongue lolls. A creature once dead begins to stir again. This is not science fiction, this was real. In the 1940s and 1950s, a Soviet scientist claimed he could bring the dead back to life, at least for a fleeting moment. His name was Sergei Brukhonenko, and his experiments would shock the world, disturb the scientific community, and blur the line between medical innovation and Frankenstein-like horror. But who was this man? Why was the Soviet government funding such experiments? And most importantly, did he really succeed in resurrecting the dead? To understand this story, we need to step back into the turbulent decades following the Russian Revolution and World War II. The Soviet Union was desperate to assert dominance, not just in military power, but in science, medicine, and technology. The competition with the West wasn't only about nuclear weapons and space travel. It was about ideas, progress, and shocking the world with proof of Soviet superiority. It was in this atmosphere of scientific ambition, secrecy, and state propaganda that Sergei Sergeyevich Brukhonenko emerged. Brukhonenko was not a madman in a dark castle. He was a respected medical researcher. Born in 1890, he specialized in physiology and experimental surgery. His ultimate obsession? Conquering death itself. He believed that if the right machines could replace the heart and lungs, life could be artificially prolonged, even restored. This obsession aligned perfectly with Soviet ideology. If the West was advancing in medicine, the Soviets wanted to go further. They wanted to shock the world with science that defied imagination. And so, Brukhonenko received state funding, laboratories, and access to countless test subjects, mostly dogs. Chapter 1. The machine called autojector. Brukhonenko's most infamous invention was the autojector, a primitive heart-lung machine. Today, such technology is common in open-heart surgery, but in the 1930s and 40s this was revolutionary. The autojector used pumps, valves, and tubes to circulate oxygenated blood through the body when the heart and lungs had stopped. To demonstrate its power, Brukhonenko conducted a shocking experiment. He decapitated a dog and kept its severed head alive. Witnesses reported the head blinking its eyes, licking its nose, even reacting to sound. To Brukhonenko, this was proof that consciousness could persist without the body, if the brain received oxygenated blood. To others, it was a grotesque spectacle, closer to horror than science. But Brukhonenko went further. In 1940, he demonstrated what would become his most controversial experiment. Using the autojector, he drained all the blood from a dog until it was clinically dead. No heartbeat, no brain activity, no breathing. For 10 minutes, the dog remained lifeless. Then he pumped fresh blood back into its body using the machine. The dog's chest began to heave. Its eyes fluttered open. Against all odds, the animal returned to life. The Soviet government filmed these experiments in a documentary called Experiments in the Revival of Organisms, released in 1940. It showed dogs collapsing in death, only to rise again after Brukhonenko's intervention. The film shocked Western scientists, who questioned whether it was genuine or staged Soviet propaganda. On the one hand, Brukhonenko's work was undeniably groundbreaking. The autojector paved the way for the development of modern cardiopulmonary bypass machines. These devices save countless lives today during surgeries that would once have been impossible. In that sense, Brukhonenko's vision was prophetic, but the methods were deeply disturbing. Many of his resurrected dogs did not survive long-term. Some suffered brain damage from oxygen deprivation. Others became aggressive, lethargic, or unable to function normally. Critics argued that he wasn't truly resurrecting the dead. He was simply restarting bodies before irreversible decay set in. And yet, within the Soviet Union, Brukhonenko was celebrated. His work was presented not only as science, but as proof of Soviet mastery over life and death itself. When Western scientists were shown Brukhonenko's film after World War II, reactions ranged from fascination to horror. One surgeon remarked, "It is difficult to distinguish science from theater in these demonstrations." Others, however, were inspired. Brukhonenko's experiments pushed medicine toward the creation of safer, more sophisticated heart-lung machines, leading to successful open-heart surgery in the 1950s. Chapter 4. Witnesses and Reactions. When Western scientists were shown Brukhonenko's film after World War II, reactions ranged from fascination to horror. American and British researchers acknowledged that the heart-lung concept was valid, but doubted the authenticity of the film's more sensational scenes. One surgeon remarked, "It is difficult to distinguish science from theater in these demonstrations." Others, however, were inspired. Brukhonenko's experiments pushed medicine toward the creation of safer, more sophisticated heart-lung machines, leading to successful open-heart surgery in the 1950s. But here's the unsettling question. Did Brukhonenko truly resurrect the dead, or did he only delay death? Critics argue that what Brukhonenko called death was not true biological death, but cardiac arrest, a state from which revival is possible if done quickly. Modern medicine resuscitates patients after cardiac arrest all the time. So was Brukhonenko exaggerating his achievements for Soviet propaganda? Some even believe the film Experiments in the Revival of Organisms was partially staged. The Soviet Union, after all, was notorious for using science as a political tool. Could it be that Brukhonenko's work was less about science and more about creating the illusion of Soviet power? And yet, fragments of truth remain. His autojector was real. His techniques did contribute to life-saving technologies, but whether he truly conquered death or merely prolonged the dying process remains an unsettling mystery. In the end, Sergei Brukhonenko's story is not just about dogs, machines, or Soviet experiments. It is about humanity's eternal struggle with mortality. The desire to push against the boundaries of life and death, to ask questions we may not be ready to answer. Today, when a patient undergoes open-heart surgery, they owe a hidden debt to Brukhonenko's dark experiments. But his work also leaves us with haunting questions. Just because science can do something, should it? Where do we draw the line between saving life and playing God? As you think about this, picture once more that dim Soviet laboratory, the machine hissing, the dog's chest rising after death. Was this the dawn of modern medicine or the beginning of a dangerous obsession with mastering mortality? Perhaps the most chilling lesson is this. In our pursuit of conquering death, we may discover things far more unsettling than death itself.